just want to go ahead and just give anybody who wants to be here a chance to come in. But in the meantime, I'll go ahead and introduce us. We are Nerds Know. We come to you from Miami, Florida. It's our first time in San Antonio, so we're really happy to be here. How many of you, is this your first San Japan?
Right.
Oh, okay. Us too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Did anybody get to see the cosplay contest? Oh, okay. Awesome. So you watched a cosplay contest. What did you think of it?
Good.
Did any of you get inspired and you're like, I want to do that now? Yeah? Is that why we're here today? You're like, I'll try this thing. Seems cool.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Would love to do Monty's thing first time out. Gosh.
What's that?
The gator, Monty.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's what you want to do?
That was crazy that you could do that as a novice.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, we had a panel at the same time, so we couldn't see it.
Yeah, we didn't.
But I think I saw him walking around. Actually, I did see him. It's like a full suit, right? Yeah, I saw him and his handler. Wow, it was really impressive. That was a novice?
Yep.
My gosh.
Well, I'll explain how that can happen.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I'll explain how that.
But that basically means like that was their first time.
He did win overall for his category though.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay, it's 1 o'clock, so this is where Nerds Know.
If you guys care to follow us, we come to conventions all the time. Sometimes we're in other places in Texas, so you might catch us there.
Yeah, we went to Colossal Con, Texas 2 weeks ago. That was super awesome. And our next panel is Describe Anime Poorly. It's just a funny anime game for us weebs.
We have prizes.
We had prizes for that one. All right, cool. So, Beginner's Guide to Cosplay Competitions. This is truly a beginner's guide, but I left plenty of time for very specific questions. So I'm going to give you guys just a very general overview, and then I'll layer in specific things as we go through. So who am I? I'm Sailor Pewter Fox. I've been a cosplayer since 2011. I mostly do cosplay performances. I've performed at MomoCon Atlanta, Colossal Con Holiday Matsuri in Orlando, Florida, MetroCon in Tampa, as well as Florida SuperCon. I won the Winter Cosplay Crown at Holiday Matsuri in 2022, and then I represented Team USA in South Korea 2023. That was awesome. And just to kind of show you what I did, I would like to play the video of the performance at Holiday Matsuri.
On to our next performance! I'm so excited for all of these!
This is Yaya Han.
We have entry number 37 in the duo performance category. Oh, they have a lot to set up. But please welcome K-Cosplay and Sailor Pewter Fox as Belle and Suzu from Belle.
That's all skinny guys.
Welcome to the world of you. Your avatar is automatically generated using body sharing technology. You may not be able to start over in the real world, but you can start over in the world of you. I can finally sing again?
I'm reaching out for the moon and the stars beyond it. Here's to you, I will find though I feel that behind. Sometimes when you close the door, I wanna know who you are. I wanna know it all.
Come, it's time to live another you. It's time to start another life.
We didn't waste our time here, it's now or never.
Hello? Is anyone there?
Stay back. Leave me alone.
You don't have to hide. Let me help you.
Lend me your voice. Words you try so hard to forget. They'll break through the
The beast is in trouble. I have to find his identity. But to gain his trust, I need to reveal who I really am.
I'm ready to show you who I am.
I'm not crying, you're all crying.
So that was our performance, and with that we won. And what I would say is, if you notice, there was a costume change. The Belle had the rose dress and the whatever that other red flower is. No, the pink flower is a rose dress. The red one is like some chrysanthemum, I think. There was a humongous prop, which is the beast. There was the spinning door. There was on each side of the door, we had 3 different looks for it. We had the intro with the pink, then we had the U, then we had the castle. The judges notice all of those things. There's almost like a master checklist of like, if you want to do everything possible, these are all the things, and that's pretty much what we did to like ensure that we would win. But the competition is not always that fierce. There's not, you just truly doing, it all depends. Like in order to do that, we both had to work like our butts off for 4 months of time to just do everything. So it always depends on how much you're willing to sacrifice and put in. But today, we're gonna talk about how to enter a cosplay competition. Very entry level, where everybody first needs to start at.
Kind of like a 101.
Before you need to even worry about getting to that level. So first thing we're gonna talk about is the 3 main types of cosplay competitions. The first type is the runway contest. The second is craftsmanship contests, and then finally there's skit contests. Do any of you guys know which one you'd be interested in? Oh, who would be interested in like a runway contest? Okay, craftsmanship? Okay, and then the skit contest. Okay, 1. So I'll focus more on the other 2, but I'll definitely answer any questions that you have. Then there's also international contests. So there's certain conventions around the country that if you win, they will send you to another country to represent the United States. And I just have a very short video to kind of show what that experience is like.
Baby, say the words and I'm down. All I need is you on my side. We can do whatever you like. I'll be you. What's your ETA? 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 I'll be there now with the fire on your arm.
1, 2, 3 and 4 네 옆에 딴 놈들이 거슬려줘 후회만 오직 너만을 지키는 killer 말 그대로 난 좀 죽여줘 yeah. 너를 품에 안고 비상해 걱정은 버려 지하에 뭐를 하든 간에 하나라는 수식어가 맴돌 거야 너와 나의 귓가에
Make me feel so high 미치겠어 날 멈출 순 없어 You make me feel so high I'm so crazy 너가 나를 본 순간 날 끌려가 날 당겨줘 Baby Feel so empty
that is, cosplay can open so many doors for you to experience the world, to meet people. Beyond just in your local community, you can truly like open the whole world for you. So those are just some of the things I wanted to show. But for Cosplay 101, we'll focus on the main 3 types of contests. So cosplay competitions. Type 1 is the runway contest. So runway contests usually do not require you to make your own cosplay, or will require you to have made only a small portion. Winning is based on how well you embody the theme of the runway and the character. Extra points in this category are given for makeup, wigs, and props. So if you just want to get used to walking a runway and, you know, showing off a costume, being on the stage, this is a great entry point. You can wear any costume that you want and just get used to it. Especially because whether you made it or not, it's all about the charisma, the riz that you give off on stage. That actually is like this intangible thing that the judges can feel, and they will give you more points for really like owning it when you're on the stage. So runway contests are always a great way to start. You can find runway contests and there's many different forms. If you ever see a hallway contest, usually a hallway contest is considered like a runway contest where they'll take your picture and people can vote. There's runway contests that have different themes. Like at Holiday Matsuri, there's like the holiday runway where it's like Christmas themed costumes. There's, I'm sure like at Kawaii Con, there's like probably like a scary theme. They're really most cons have them. Some cons have more cosplay than others. So an easy way to do that is if there's a con that you're considering going to, go onto their website and click on their like cosplay tab, and they'll have all the different types of contests there. Planning is the biggest part. When you need to know when they're gonna accept entries, what they're looking for, and that kind of thing. We're gonna go into a little bit more for sure.
I was just gonna say, so the reason why I always recommend runway for first timers is, one, it's the easiest to just get in. Oftentimes they accept walk-ups, and it's also just it's a very easy entry point into familiarizing yourself with it. Sometimes craftsmanship, like we're gonna go into in a second, can be very intimidating. Not just for the pre-work, but like
the runway contests don't have pre-judging.
No.
It's a lot easier. It's just the walk on.
Yeah, so that's why I always like kind of recommend it. It's just a really good time. Like a lot of our friends have competed in those, and I'm sure, have you done any?
Yeah,
we
did one together. Holiday Matsuri 2016.
Oh yeah.
We were Uranus and Neptune. I was like Santa Neptune, and he was a deer Uranus.
Oh my gosh, we've done a lot since the memes. But yeah, so I really recommend them for sure.
Yeah. And definitely, since there's no prejudging, it takes less time out of your con overall. So you don't have to plan to be a part of the contest like 2 or 3 days in a row. Then there's the craftsmanship contest. Craftsmanship contests usually require you to have made at least 75% of your cosplay. What that means is usually if let's say your cosplay has pants as a part of it, you can buy the pants, but you made everything else. Or you can buy the shoes. Wigs and like nails and teeth and all that kind of stuff doesn't count as part of the overall percentage. What really is counting is anything that your character wears. So you have to have made at least 75%. Sometimes they're very strict and it's 80 to 85%, in which case like maybe just the shoes you can get away with not having made yourself. But making also means modifying. So let's say you buy a pair of shoes, but then you put boot covers over it, now those shoes don't count against your percentage. If you buy like a capelet and you add all this fabric and layers and stuff all the way around it, that also won't count. So if you modify it heavily, that also counts as making it. Yes?
No, so what about like getting help from like a family member or something like that?
That's another part of the percentage points. So let's say you didn't want to buy the piece, but you had somebody help you make it. That can also, so this is Okay, actually, this is something I was going to bring up in the next slide, but I'll say it here as well. Cosplay is a community effort. There's very few cosplayers that don't have help from anybody. For one, you need help sometimes getting it to fit you right. Like for me, I never finish a cosplay until one of my best friends goes through. I wear it inside out and she pins all the parts that are loose or not fitting me great so that then I take it off and then we re-sew it and fix it. Yeah. So there's certain things that you physically can't do on yourself sometimes. So having help from others is fine. Or like sometimes you don't have all the machines. So you need like a serger, which is a very expensive machine that stops fabric from fraying on the ends. So you'll go to a friend's house and borrow their machine, and then they might help you cutting some stuff out. That kind of stuff doesn't go against your percentage points either. Really what it comes down to is how much was made / modified versus just purchased and not what's the word, customized.
It's really important, I would say, that the person who's entering, you just make sure that they do like a majority of it. There are people in some competitions, and this is something that you'd have to find in the rules, that don't want to be in the costume. Like they'll have someone model it, if you will. That person who made it is still going to win the prize because it's the craftsmanship. But you have to look at, that's for, like, we'll go into that.
Yeah,
when you look at the rules, you have to look for those like little things. The one other thing I was going to mention, and it's funny, like if you go on YouTube and like look around like videos on the cosplay community, there's like been a recent video that talked about this one case where a person bought a costume from someone and then entered with that costume, and they kind of like lightly modified a part of it. That was like a huge no-no. That person got in major trouble, I think, because of that situation.
Well,
but that's like
they had their victories revoked because
basically, that's like an extreme. That's what really that rule is about. Like you helping like a family member,
right? Like
or a friend.
Most cosplayers start off with their like moms helping them do a bunch of the work, right? Like cutting out the pattern, cutting out the fabric, putting the first mock-up together.
It's a great family.
There's so many steps, but ultimately what the judges are looking for is that you primarily did the work and that what you're wearing is primarily handmade or modified. Now, the next part of craftsmanship competitions is that participants are divided by skill level and sometimes by type, such as armor versus sewing or solo versus group. So skill level is novice, journeyman, masters. How you qualify for those categories is based on how many competitions you've won. So you might have been making and even entering competitions for years, but if you've never won, you're still considered a novice. You're not considered a journeyman until you've won one major award. So let's say you won best prop, you would still be considered best novice in the skill level category overall. And then in order to be considered a master level, you have to have won a best in show at least twice to be considered master level. It depends also if it's like a regional cosplay contest where it's like a much bigger cosplay contest, then even winning best in show once could bump you to master level. But if you win best in show at like a smaller local con, you'd have to win it twice to be considered a master. So that's why somebody could have all the skill and be super awesome. They just probably never bothered entering a cosplay contest before or never won before. And that's how they might still be considered novice. And then armor versus sewing. Sometimes they'll have best armor build versus best craftsmanship. And that could also be a different category. So usually when you're entering the cosplay contest, they have all the categories for winning, and it might help you decide what you want to build. If you're like, oh wow, there's a specific award for best prop, let me focus all my energy on making the prop that I want for this character. Because you can always build parts of the costume as you go along and enter into different categories as you move forward. So.
And I was going to say that there have been cases where a novice just completely blows away the judges that they win best in show. Like I'm sure like that crocodile, I forget the characters. It was from Five Nights at Freddy, right? What's the name of the crocodile character? Shoot.
Monty.
Monty. Gotcha. Like I haven't finished that game yet. Yeah, and like if it was like, oh my gosh, this just blow us out of the water, they'll be like, that deserves best in show. Like, that's worthy of that.
Yeah,
there's some
best
cases.
in show isn't limited to masters.
Masters or journeyman. Yeah. Yeah, probably. And the other thing is, even if it's your first time, there sometimes are special prizes, like in the case of
Judges awards.
pre-qualifiers for bigger competitions, which is very common in the cosplay competition scene. Like sometimes people go to specific conventions because they want to qualify for Anime Expo in LA, or they want to qualify for GCOF in Korea or ECG in France. That's very common, and you don't necessarily have to have a novice or journeyman or master under your belt in order to win that award. So.
But yeah, it's also good to know who won previous years and to see the level of competition that a specific cosplay contest has, because there's certain like smaller contests aren't going to have the level of competition that like a regional qualifier will have. So but of course the other part of it is just making friends. So just being backstage in the pre-judging room, you're in a line together, and backstage, so you get to meet people. So sometimes like it's worth entering a competition, even if you're like, I have no chance of winning, just because you're going to be around a lot of people that you wanted to meet anyway. And there's value in it in the process through and through. And so in general with craftsmanship, winning is based on how well you employed crafting techniques to create an accurate cosplay. So they're going to be looking at what the character looked like and how you put it together, and using a variety of techniques and also sometimes like your first draft isn't going to work. So you have to do sometimes 2 or 3 versions to get it to sit right, to get it to look right. So and they'll take all of that into account.
And they get in there, they look at the details.
They'll flip your scenes to look at how clean they are.
As perfectionist as you can be, the better your chances.
They'll give you points for how clean it looks on the inside as well. And then finally, there's skit contests. Skit contests usually require you to have made a portion of your cosplay, but judging is split between crafting and performance. So even if you have to make 75% of your costume for a skit, the overall points is still probably going to be 60-40 or 50-50. Sometimes it's like 70-30, where they'll lean more on giving you points for the performance. So as long as you kind of check the box, yes, I made 75% of this costume, they're not going to judge you as heavily on how perfectly you made it, because they're going to put more of the points into the performance and that aspect of it. Participants will be given between like 1 and 3 minutes to perform, and often using a pre-recorded audio. And then winning is based on how well you utilize a variety of skills to make a great performance. That means, did you incorporate any dancing or any stunt fighting? Or how did you use your set pieces? How did you use props? How did you make use of the stage? All of those things.
Special effects.
And then the other thing too is, like I said before, even with crafting a costume, it takes a village. That's very much how it is with performance as well. Like my friend Sammy and I, who did the Winter Cosplay Championship, we leaned heavily on him to do the video background for us, because there's no rules against getting other people. When we finally went to Korea, we actually had the little angel character animated and move around the screen. We hired a friend of ours to do that for us. So
we also had to redo the song because of the rules. They were like, hey, like has to be,
couldn't use pre-recorded.
Can't be pre-recorded from soundtrack. So we had to hire a friend to help us sing over it because we can't hit those notes.
Yeah. So you can. It's like, it's really like at that point it becomes like, who do you know that can help you with this thing? And usually people, even if they're not into cosplay, are very willing to help out and be a part of it. And there's no points deducted for having help from variety of people that have different skills. Especially with the performance aspect, they're not counting on whether or not you like built everything yourself and edited the video yourself. They don't even ask. They just know that it was your vision and you got it done.
Like, and if I could just say really quick, a good way of like looking at it is like, it's kind of like a little mini Broadway performance. Like it's what you put there, like it's the story you make, it's the props you do, like the overall experience. Like if you can like get a great emotional reaction from the audience, the judges, whether it's comedy, action, or drama, like you're doing your job right. Like that's the goal, and have fun with it. Like it's
Whatever you're particularly good at, use that.
use that. That's it.
So next, we're gonna dive into how to actually enter a contest. Now, first it's plan, then we're gonna go into build and compete. So how to plan. Number one, this might be very obvious, but choose a contest. The reason why this is actually still number one is because there are so many contests, even in your local area for you, that it's worth going on Google, looking at all the contests around you, trying to find previous years' applications and rule books and all that to see, because different contests have different expectations and things that they want. There's some that, you know, you only had to make 45% of your cosplay. There's some that, so just depending on or like where it is and what they want, it's good to choose like a nice entry level contest. And then number two is definitely read the rules. I don't know why, but there are still so many people who enter costume contests that didn't read the rules, aka this person who bought a cosplay and tried to enter with that. The rules will tell you exactly what they consider handmade or not. They'll tell you also if you need to do a prejudging time slot, or if you're expected to be there at 10 a.m. on Sunday, or they'll tell you usually all of the expectations that they have, so that you know, like, is this what I want to do with my weekend at that con, you know? And that way you know where to be and what you need to do, what you need to bring with you. Sometimes they'll require you to bring a book that has, like a physical book that has pictures of everything that you did. Sometimes they only want a digital copy of that. All of those very niche things are written out there. And also never be afraid to ask questions. They will always have an email address that you can ask questions to. And I didn't mention this before, but I volunteered and behind the scenes at a cosplay department for like 3 years. Huh? Yeah. Well, you didn't respond to the cosplay applicants. I did.
Oh, you did
But,
that.
yeah.
No, you're right.
And usually the people who asked a ton of questions, by the time they got there, we knew who they were. We were like, oh, it's you. I talked to you so many times in the last 2 months. But it actually does build a relationship, and the cosplay director and the cosplay department is there to help you know what you need to do and have a good time. So never be shy to ask them literally whatever question you might have. Hey, you know, this character, her horns are technically 8 inches tall, but because of my, you know, phobia, I can only use 4-inch tall. Am I gonna get points deducted for that? Like, I'm talking about as specific as you want. Don't even be weird. I've answered so many questions.
Like for us, for the skit one, we had to get into some very specifics because, as you saw, our stage was really big, and we were like, hey, like, can we do this? Can we do that? Because it was going to be a time and resource investment. We wanted to make sure that we did it right, so that we didn't get there and be like, oh, hey, like, you guys actually use this prop. And it's like, oh man, I just devoted like 20 hours into this.
We needed to know exactly how deep the stage was, because
exactly.
If our door is 6 feet wide and it needs to
Those are
sit,
questions to ask.
we need at least 5 feet behind it and 5 feet in front of it to be able to move. So we had to ask all those things, and like, what's the aspect ratio of the screen that we're gonna have? For performances, it's very technical, so that's why it's like, for those who were interested in doing a performance one, I'll answer those questions afterward. And then finally, like, prepare your entry. Go through those rules and then make sure that what you are submitting, both book-wise, your actual costume, et cetera, is right to the rules. You don't want to be disqualified for not having followed the rules. That just sucks. So make sure you put it all there as like a little checklist for yourself.
Can I give a quick pro tip?
Yeah.
Our friend Sammy is so detailed oriented. She made like this detailed checklist. Like, everyone has different personality, everyone's organized differently, but I really appreciated how she does that, and I think that that's a really helpful thing, especially when you're doing like a big cosplay project, whether it's Craftsman or like a skit. it's good to be organized because it can get very daunting. Like for me, like helping you was very daunting at times, but the fact that we had like a Google sheet and detailed every piece of the cosplay from research to execution to
Yeah.
final like bringing it all together, it helps a lot. So I recommend long short
Yeah.
be organized.
That's kind of
It's gonna help your build look too.
That's kind of going into the build part. So now you know what cosplay contest you want to enter, you know what the rules are, you have a kind of idea of what you want to make for it. So next is your cosplay. Obviously, with if you're brand new to sewing or craftsmanship, I would definitely say that there are so many resources on YouTube. And what I've done is I'll find a specific YouTuber that just explains things in a way that I can get it, and I'll go through and watch all of their videos. That's how I learned how to make armor. That's how I learned how to sew a bunny suit. That's like how I learned how to tease and style wigs. Like all of it has been through YouTube. For me personally, even though I have friends that are great crafters, when they explain things, it's just like I'm just like, I don't have no idea what you're talking about right now. But when I see it like in a video form with somebody who's like broken it up step by step, I'm like, oh, I can follow this and I can pause the video and then do the thing and then go back and rewatch it. Like that's how I learn. So definitely, I just can't help recommend it enough. But you can also look up people who have previously made the costume that you want to make and ask them questions. I can't tell you how many times I've received questions. I'm like, hey, I want to make this same costume. How did you do this part? How did you do that part? What fabrics did you choose? Why did you choose those fabrics? And then I'll tell them like, well, this is why I chose this specific fabric. This is the type of stitch that I chose to do on this side because it helps me get a good curve here, etc., etc. So usually the people who have already made a costume are more than happy to share how they did what they did, because it's not a closed off competitive community. It's definitely a let's all have fun together community. And so don't ever be shy to go ahead and message somebody and ask them. And then your build book. Usually the rules will have exactly what they want in the build book, but sometimes they don't. They just tell you a 10-page max book. And you're like, okay, great. What do I put in this book? That's where you need to have, you need to make sure that there's a lot of resources out there on how to put together a build book. But the very first thing is reference images of the character that you made. Specifically, if you have, it can be like a specific version of the character, use those images, like the detailed close-up shots that you use for your own reference, put that in the book so that when you take the pictures of what you finally made, and then also while you're creating the costume, always stop and say, oh, I need a picture of this. Like when you get that final seam on those pants and you're doing the embellishing and you're doing all that picture, get as many pictures of the process, because that's what also helps them see like, oh, okay, they made that. Oh, they sanded that armor themselves. Oh, they painted this themselves. They designed this pattern on their cricket themselves. Like that kind of thing is always really good. And then of course your performance. That's whether or not you're doing a skit, a runway, or a craftsmanship, you still need to plan how you're going to walk on the stage, especially if you have, certain characters that have big props or they have like specific poses. You want to embody them as much as you possibly can. So literally looking up how that character moves, what are some of their signature poses, and hitting those. Usually when you're walking the stage, they'll let you do 3 poses. So you walk, pose, walk to the center, pose again, and then you can either do a second pose like in the center, like as you're stopped, or you can kind of walk and keep posing. They'll kind of tell you whether they want you to like move along or like have time to like just stop in the middle and do a bunch of poses. But knowing exactly what you're gonna do, and then if you have like a big prop, like swinging it around or just like really playing with everything that you have. If you have a fluffy skirt, make sure you twirl. Make sure if you have a long train that everything is like laying as best as it possibly can and moving as best as it can, because that's your like 45 seconds to like really tell the judges like this is the showstopper. So that's that part. Then finally, compete. How to compete? Have fun, follow the rules, and make friends. Definitely with cosplay competitions, of course, there's awesome prizes on the line. There's usually cash prizes, or sewing machines, or trips, or gift cards that you can win. But the best part about it, and this is something that stopped me for so many years from entering a cosplay contest, was just being so nervous. Like, if I don't win, it means I'm not good. And I really, if I could go back in time and tell myself, like, who literally cares? They're just gonna remember that you were there. And so if I could go back in time and tell myself, I would have started competing much sooner, because it definitely helps you sharpen your craft. It helps you meet people who are super like-minded, like some of my best friends I met through competing. And it also just kind of gives you a goal. You're like, okay, why am I gonna spend this extra 30 minutes to redo this little corner of this costume? Because eventually I will wear it in a competition, and it's worth it for that moment. You know, so it kind of keeps you as sharp as possible. And then definitely don't be shy with the people that are sitting in line around you, to walk up, ask them their Instagram handles, see what they're doing afterward, get your Denny's crew. Like, those are just some of the best memories of all time. So that's the last of that. And then congrats, whether you win or lose, you competed. Questions? I hope you guys have questions, because I have lots of answers.
No, I'm pointing at you. You look like you had a question. So
Like the walk-on versus you sign up, is it, like, do they limit the walk-ons, you think? Is every competition different?
sometimes they do have caps.
But it's very rare that they'll hit their cap. And if with walk-ons, you still technically have to sign up, but they'll have like a table outside where you sign up real quick. So it's not like you have to apply online in advance. So once you get to the con, you just go and you sign up. It's very, very rare that they'll kick people out. But there's certain competitions, which is kind of why it's like I highly recommend starting at like some smaller local cons first. There's certain cons, like at MomoCon. People who have been competing for 10 years couldn't get in because they had to have people in line like 3 hours before prejudging started, and there was just and that's like, at that point your entire weekend is sunk into this contest. Personally, I wouldn't want to be in that situation, but you'll know in advance what the competition is looking like and how many people are there. That's for craftsmanship, but definitely, like, even at Holiday Matsuri with the runway, it did cap out.
Capped out.
Yeah, they had but the cap was like 120 participants.
I would definitely recommend contacting the cosplay department and the con that you're looking to, whether it's San Antonio or San Japan, I should say, or another con, just to ask if there's a possibility of pre-signing up, because then they'll...
I guess what kind of confused me was they had sign-ups and then they like filled it immediately.
Did they do that for here?
But then,
For San-
but then last night they had walk-on winners, and so I was confused about.
Well,
Yeah.
what San Japan does, they have basically for anyone that wants to be on stage, either walk on or skit, you have to sign up in advance. There's also the Hall Cosplay Contest, which basically you can just walk up and get it's craftsmanship only, and that's what the Hall Cosplay Contest is, at least here. That you don't have to sign up in advance, as far as I know. Double check with them, but I think that one you can just walk up and ask to participate. But if you want to be on stage, you have to sign up in advance pretty much as soon as they opened it up for that.
Yeah, that's where I would go and say, check out the website of all the cons that you're going to and click on their cosplay tab. That's where they'll have all the different contests and the different rules for each. San Japan is a bigger con. It's like 40,000 plus people. So I would compare it to like a MomoCon, where even if you've been competing forever, you need to wait 3 hours in line just for a chance to do prejudging. So it's easier if you're starting at a con that's like 1,000 to 5,000 people. It's not going to have as much of a overwhelming crowd, and you'll definitely get in without an issue.
And are you considering runway or craftsmanship or cosplay?
Preferably craftsmanship because I crochet.
Oh,
I
good.
competed here at Central Japan a couple years ago. I didn't get anything, which is fine, whatever.
Oh.
Like I did the experience.
There you
so
go.
I made a bunch of friends out of it.
Yeah.
But like they were like the judges. I don't know if it was just the judges, but they were like crochet. Like I don't know about that. Like for craftsmanship.
Like, how do you know with the judges ahead of time? Like, because you don't know the judges ahead of time.
Right.
You should lean your cosplay towards.
Um,
Like, what's your experience in what direction?
I would say that I've seen crocheted cosplays becoming more popular in recent years. Before it was very rare, but this year at the Norwegian cosplay contest, there was a crocheter who made even the little props and everything. So it does depend on the judges. Some judges, that's a whole other thing, I guess. But if a cosplay contest, you can kind of tell the level of excellence based off of previous year's judges. Different contests will have a wider variety. They'll have somebody who's really good at armor, somebody who's really good at sewing, somebody who's really good at body paint. They'll try to have just more of a diversity. But if you're doing something that's like niche, then what you want to do is you just want to be the best out of the best.
Yeah.
So now you have to first of all too, you have to make sure that you're showing how accurate the technique that you're using is being done to portray the character, because that's the number one thing that they're looking for in craftsmanship. You have to show like, okay, this is the character that I'm trying to create, and the reason why I'm doing crocheting is because this technique looks the most accurate to what this character is. If you can show that, then you have to just go all out. Now you got to make the props, you got to make the headpieces, you got to make the earrings, you got to make everything. That way they're like, oh my gosh, like this person made all the accessories, they made every single piece. And you have to show in your build book why the technique that you applied is the best version or the most accurate version to this character. So kind of with the specific technique that you're looking at, it might limit what kind of characters you can make, that where you can genuinely say like crocheting is the most accurate technique for this character. But there are some I'm just thinking of even off the top of my head that it could work for. But they are looking at that. Which is the technique that you applied the best technique to create this look? So that's where most of the points come from.
I was going to offer two things just from my perspective behind the scenes. One, I would definitely lean into that build book because, as she mentioned, they typically look at that when they choose cosplay judges out of their cosplay, I guess, you try to have people from different experiences. There might not be a crocheter or someone who has experience with that. So
your book is what's going to show.
Book is going to be able to show like exactly. It might educate them on the detail of the work that you did, things that they might not know, and like she said, like reasons why you chose crocheting, and also definitely. Want to second on that wow factor. Like if you do something that's just like blows people's brains with your crochet work, it doesn't matter how much experience they have with or without not in that field, they'll be like, wow, like that deserves like recognition.
Because they'll get 5 minutes with you, but they keep your book.
Yeah.
And the people that left a strong impression on them, so I've been in the room, I've been like the timekeeper for prejudging 2 years in a row, and it's like a whirlwind when you're in front of them. And then afterward, they're like, okay, who are the people that like kind of stood out to me? And then they'll grab those books and put them at the top and really flip through them. So like they're already making their selection right after prejudging. They're narrowing down the list. And then they're looking through your book and then they're like, okay, now these are the few. And then when they see you walk, that's what gets you over the edge. It's like really those are like your 3 moments with them. The moments that you're with them in prejudging, the book that you leave behind, and your walk. Those are like the 3. Yes.
So you said a lot of the information you learned was from YouTube. Are there like any particular YouTubers that you recommend following?
Oh, gosh.
Is there, like, and then the second part of the question is, there are a lot of bad information out there on YouTube that you kind of have to sift through and figure out what's good versus what's bad?
It really depends as far as what's bad, because everybody has different ways of doing things. So it all just depends on how you ultimately want it to end up. Like, there's some people who, yeah, they might have burned the heck out of that wig, but they made it look like how it needed to look. So like, no, you can never restyle this wig for another character. That might not be what you wanted. You might want to have been able to just, can I like wash it and like redo this wig for another character eventually in the future? So that's why I would say like, that's my caution against like whether it's bad or good, because it's like, it depends on what the final product is. The way that I would honestly, for myself, because there's certain, okay, let me go back. One of the first questions you asked was who's some YouTubers that I follow. Believe it or not, Jessica Negri is who I learned armor building from. Her videos were so good, and she doesn't cut out any of the process. She literally sits there and shows you exactly how she shaved the edges, how she dremeled, how she did every single step. So, and she made a lot of like really cool World of Warcraft costumes that I want to make in the future. So Jessica Negri is who I follow for that. My goodness, there's a lot of sewing ones that I've looked at, because it just depends on like, for me, I'm like, I want to find a video that's like exactly what I'm making, so that I don't have to just apply it. So with sewing, I would say that it's, because with armor, I don't know. Armor for me is easier than sewing, because you literally, you heat it and it becomes the shape that you want, and then all you have to do is like carve it. It's more like artistry, like hand, I don't know. I don't want to say that sewing's not artistry. Like where it's like illustration, like if you're good at drawing, armor is easier for you. With sewing, at least for me, it feels like a lot of math, where it's like, okay, like I need my skirt to be this long. How many inches is that? And then I have to make like, the second I have to use the word like diameter and stuff, I'm like, oh God, I don't know how to do
Different
math.
people have different strengths.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so what I would recommend too, as far as following people, look for someone making what you're making.
Yeah, it's easy that way.
It's the easiest, like we're doing right now. We're going to compete at Hallmat again this year.
Say that, I'm not telling anybody that, bro. No.
Well, regardless of which, no, but that in this process, we're looking at like, okay, like how did this person do this? And you kind of, I like to look at it as you look at how different people do it and take what serves you and leave the rest. Like as far as the bad ones, like yeah, like maybe that bad person didn't do, like they did very sloppy surge work, or it's not good, but maybe they did something about the prosthetics right, or something about how they did the shape or their interpretation. Because oftentimes, we didn't even go into this, sometimes you're trying to portray characters that aren't physically, humanly, like doesn't work in our reality. And you have to take some interpretations. It defies the laws of physics, yes, exactly. So like you look at the Beast, no one had done that before. We had to look at it and had to be like, okay, like how can we translate this to that? And we
used somebody who made a General Grievous outfit, and they showed exactly how they had the harness and they had like the ski boot things to move the legs, and then we created the frame based off of that. So yeah.
So exactly, that's a great example. You look at something that's like, okay, that's kind of like in the frame of what I'm trying to do, and I'm going to take ideas from that. And the second thing to that is, to the point of relying on your community and also weeding out the bad, is show it to people who you know have done similar stuff. So like if you're like, okay, I want to do this sewing thing, and I found this YouTube, I would show it to our sewing expert friends. People who are like, man, these guys are really good. Hey, did they do this right? Or did they just kind of bad?
Yeah.
And oftentimes they'll be very open about their feedback. And it's not in a mean way. It's like, hey, this is what we can learn from this and what you should do to apply it correctly.
Usually, and I have done that, actually, thank you for reminding me. I have done that where I was like, oh, I really like how this person made this I don't know, shoulder pad. What do you think? And they'll be like, well, they kind of did this part a little harder. They could have used this tool instead, and like they'll tell you. So, and like let's say you don't have any friends that have those skill sets. You can literally, like I was saying, go on Instagram, find somebody who made it, and then be like, hey, especially if they didn't make a tutorial, you can even ask them. Sometimes they use somebody else's tutorial. So if you're like, okay, I don't want to spend time like on YouTube messing around seeing what the best video tutorial is for this, like just you can kind of cut the corners by just going and saying, hey, do you have a video reference that you use when you're making this? And they'll usually share it. But really, there are like kind of going back, just the last thing I would want to say on that is that there are so many ways to make something. And the best way is the one that makes sense to you and that you can actually do. Because sometimes, like some of my friends that have been sewing for 20 plus years, like their way of doing things, like I cannot replicate it. There's certain skills and techniques that are just second nature to them that I don't know how to do. So I have to do things a different way to get the result that I want, without having to like scratch my head and be like, what am I doing right now? So like particularly when it comes to like following a pattern. So I have friends that they'll go and they'll buy like a McCall's pattern from Joann's, and then they'll take that pattern and modify it to the costume that they want to make. I can't do that. Like it just doesn't work for me. If I don't have the exact pattern that I'm making, it's not gonna happen. Something's gonna be super wonky and not work out. So that like, and I'm honest about those like types of limitations. There are, pattern making classes, pattern making tutorials and things like that. However, I'm lucky enough that I know about this brand called Hyatt, which if you haven't heard of it, it's basically they've done that work for us, and most like of the really weird specific cosplay shapes that we need, they have patterns for it, and they will literally tell you, here's step 1, step 2, step 3. So all of my sewing comes from that. If like what I actually need to make is the pattern that Simplicity or McCall's have provided, those patterns are fine. But when you're like, okay, but now I needed to kind of like the Chinese dresses, the cheongsam, where it has to like come up your neck and then it has like a window here. It's like, how am I gonna make that? I go and take my pieces from another pattern. So definitely, and also always save your patterns, because you'll never know if you need that really weird like sleeve shape again or something like that. Yeah, I think, yes.
So we did the hallway contest this year. It was really cool and fun. They didn't ask for a build book or in anything, but we thought it would really help, because there's just a lot going on with our costumes and you can only talk so fast.
Right.
But if they don't ask for it, is that like kind of frowned upon to bring one anyway?
I wouldn't say it's frowned upon, but
Can I speak into it real quick? Yeah, I mean, from my experience, hallway contests are more like runway. It's not really about the build.
No, the one here is craftsmanship.
Oh, is it craftsmanship?
Yeah, the
so
one
they do
here
look
is-
at that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, maybe would you know if they look at that? Like,
Well, I know that the whole, what they call the whole cosplay contest here is basically 100% craftsmanship.
oh wow.
But I don't, as far as how they judge, I don't know.
So what I would say is, it's always better to be the best and just do the most. Like hashtag do the most. So I would say like try not to make it like a 10-page like book, but maybe like a 2-sheeter with like that you staple, so that's not something that they have to like lug around. But if they say like, oh no, sorry, we can't accept it, they're not gonna say, oh my gosh, this
It can't
person
burn.
tried this stuff. So-
Wow, why did you go all the way?
but like, I'm not gonna lie and tell you how many times like just going that extra mile has helped me place, or help me get a judge's award, or help me do something, because they're like, man, this person went the extra mile on this thing. And the judges will always remember somebody who worked harder and did more, because that's really what separates us. It's not necessarily natural talent or how we look or even what costume we are choosing to do. It's usually like how hard did we work and how much effort did we put in.
Yeah.
That's what they try to give the awards to. So yeah, I would always say, like, if it doesn't ask for it, just do it anyway. Especially because, like I said, those are with the hallway contest, they take a picture, right? So what are your interaction points with the judges? Like, I always try to think like that. Okay, I have my first impression is my prejudging. I want to leave a very lasting first impression. Then my book is like, if I'm not there in the room, what's going to advocate for me? This book is going to advocate for me. And then finally, whether it's the picture or my walk or my performance, that's where I have to make sure that I'm like especially with hallway contests, like you got to make sure that you're like posing or like, let's say you have like your rib cage is super cool, like, you know.
They try to do a JoJo pose.
Yeah, like I will say, like, cosplay posing is like, if something doesn't hurt, you're not doing it right. Like you need to either bend your back or your leg or your shoulder or something. Like you got to do something to like extend your body in ways that's not normal, so that your costume is like front and center. So that's what I would say.
Was there a question in the back?
Yes.
Yeah. How soon would you say that you should like put in for the cosplay contest?
Oh, that's a great question.
Like maybe here or at a smaller con?
I mean, really, they usually open applications like 3 months before the contest. Some like super organized ones will open it like 6 months before, but that's really rare. Sometimes it's even like 1.5 months before. So I would literally stalk their website and their Instagram or Facebook to see like when they opened it. Like click get notifications and just see all their posts, because you want to be among the first, especially because sometimes they will update the rules each year. So you want to just make sure that you can work off of the previous year's rules, because there's just not many costumes are going to come together in like 1 to 3 months. It usually takes more than that. So I would always say, like, start working on the costume like a year in advance, like a year in advance. To promise you that the con crunching, you want to leave it for just the final details that you're like, oh my gosh, if I had the time to add this, it would give me like a few more points. That's where you want to be at when you're like a month or 2 weeks ahead of the con. If you're like, does this fit me right? You are really late. You are in trouble. So. But yeah, I would say apply as soon as sometimes it's first come, first serve basis on the competition applications, but sometimes also it's like they want to have a certain, like, they want to have a variety of fandoms. So
or like skill levels.
And skill levels. So but definitely never be afraid to be like amongst the first to apply. And then definitely they'll usually have a deadline, like you need to submit your build book 1 week in advance. You need to do this, and just put all of those on your calendar so you make sure you get them everything they need on time.
I would recommend look at the previous year's rules and work off of that. So if you know, let's say you want to do San Japan cosplay competition, look at what this year's rules were.
Yeah, save them, because it'll probably be taken off the website.
They might be taken off. And they might change a little here and there, but maybe start thinking now, okay, what I want to do then. And then it's like she said, like 6 months before, even though they might not open it till 4 months before, start working on it then. And worst case scenario, you might have to modify something, or maybe you have to go in a different direction. But it's definitely better to plan further ahead, because who doesn't know, like, con crunch is like the worst. It's the worst. No one wants to do that, and you don't want to rush good work, honestly.
Did that answer your question? Yeah. Oh, okay, awesome. Any more
I know
questions?
you're almost out of time, and I don't want to take from anybody else, but how do you know what cosplay you're choosing? Like, if you say you're going to compete in the California one again,
yeah,
do you specifically go, okay, well, that one is geared more towards this anime or towards this show?
That's a great question, too.
Do you gear your cosplay towards a certain area?
Personally, I look at what the competition is like. So sometimes you have to, a costume might just be too simple. where it's like no matter how good you made it, no matter how much you added to it, it's just not a difficult costume to make. And so if you're surrounded by cosplayers who are going to be making much more intricate costumes, like don't submit that one there. Go for something that is on the same level as what the typical competition looks like. So I would worry less about, but sometimes in the rules it'll say it has to be Japanese origin, or it'll say it'll say you cannot do fan art or you can do fan art. So that I would also say take into consideration. But I mean, for sure, like if it's an anime expo, like you'd want to do something anime based. But a lot of cons, like Comic Cons in particular, you can do Disney, you can do like Marvel, you can do all kinds of fandoms without it counting against you. And also different ones have different categories. Like MegaCon has like best movie lookalike, and stuff like that, where now you're like, or most original, or they'll have different categories, and sometimes that can kind of get you inspired too, where you're like, oh, okay, actually I think I could go for that specific category. You might not win that category, but at least you went for something that kind of inspired you. But that's how I normally would do it. Until you know what the judges like I will say, at Holiday Matsuri last year, there was a Monster Hunter skit and a Legend of Zelda skit, and they were equally skill level, equal difficulty, equal performance level. But the Legend of Zelda cosplayers won because the judges liked the Legend of Zelda more.
You can't predict that.
You can't predict that, and they wouldn't have, if it wasn't equal on all those levels, then it would have gone to whoever was better. But that it's because like at the end of the day, like the judges have like such a small window to make their decisions that it's like a gut feeling. So sometimes it's like, a lot of times you will see people go, oh, this character's super popular right now, let me do this character because it's going to be well received. Because the judges, it's hot right now, kind of thing.
But ultimately, do something else that you love. Though.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, the most important thing is you want to like enjoy making it and enjoy being in it.
Yeah,
so don't
exactly.
think too hard on it. Honestly.
And if you don't win one year, you can always wear it again, make it better.
Yeah.
I've seen people do that where they've worked on it for 3 years in a row. We have like a little bit more time. Yeah, we're okay. The next one doesn't start for another hour.
Okay. Well,
okay.
There's one.
All right, what question?
Y'all started kind of touching on that again, but I was going to ask, is there an etiquette for re-entering costumes, either modified or is it a smaller con and then you go to a larger con?
Yes, there's etiquette and even specific rules. So if you won Best in Show in a contest, in a costume, like that thing is retired. You can, even if it was at a smaller show, even if you only won $100 for that Best in Show, like it's retired. So, but if you won like Best Novice, or if you won a Judges Award or something like that, at a smaller show, you can take that costume to a bigger one. Like I know friends that have won like Best Prop, and then they worked on the costume itself and then won Best in Show. So even if you won Best something, as long as it's not Best in Show and it's not a big like regional con like San Japan, then you can take it to a bigger contest to compete there.
But most of all, when in doubt, just ask the cosplay department.
And definitely say, hey, I won Best Prop, or hey, I won Best Novice, but I've made all of these modifications. It's truly like, that's a great one too. Oh, you could always email them, get to know them. By the time they see you, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I know you, I know your email address by heart.
Hopefully for the right reasons.
And always be as nice as possible. I cannot tell you, even like a slightest bit of attitude will get you canceled. Because the cosplay department has to deal with so many people that they will remember the person that was just super nasty, and they'll be like, ugh. I mean, they won't tell the judges. Like, they're not going to say anything to the judges about how you treated them in email, but they'll just remember you and they'll be like, if I have any reason not to accept you next year, that will probably.
If I can rephrase that a little bit, just be professional. Like, it goes such a long
Polite.
way. Polite, and well, when I say professional, it's like, be courteous, you know? Like, it goes such a long way because a lot of times people just aren't that, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not gonna go the extra mile
Almost
to
all
help you
cosplay
because-
departments are volunteer-led.
Yeah,
So it's
we're
like
all
people
doing
are
this for fun.
volunteering their time. There's no need to be
Yeah.
mean to them for
But,
whatever reason. And then I had
Good
one more question over here.
Was there? No?
Teletubby? I thought I saw your hand up.
No,
All right, my bad. All right, well, cool. I hope I answered all your guys' questions. I hope you all enter a contest soon. And this has been our pleasure. Again, we are Nerds Know, and we'll see you at closing ceremonies.
Enjoy the rest of your guys' day.